Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the February 19th, 2015 edition of the Auburn Zoning Board of Appeals. Before we get started, just like to remind the audience that we are live on the local access channel. We will be recording for the purpose of replay on the local access channel. And I also have to ask if anybody is recording the meeting in the audience. Okay, hearing none, seeing none. Do I have a motion to open?
Motion to open. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so our first 7 o'clock PM applicant, Mr. George, and I apologize for not pronouncing the last name properly, Reege, I hope, of Chieftain Liquors, requested a special permit under section 767, electronic message centers of the Auburn zoning bylaws to install an electronic message center on property located at 87 Southbridge Street, Auburn, Mass., map 12, parcel 145. The applicant here, could you step forward, please, sir? Could you state your name for the record, please, and give us an overview of what you'd like to do?
My name is George, last name is Reyes, from Chieftain Liquors.
Okay.
As you stated, sir, I'm trying to get a message sign on my business property to increase my business. Trying to stay in business, actually.
So I'm just going to ask before I turn it over to the members of the board. This picture that you provided in your packet,
Yes, sir.
the small square here that's on the pole, is that where you're proposing this is going to be mounted?
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Cussy, do you have any questions of the applicant?
I don't. In your statement, you said selectmen asked you to maintain the sign that you have.
Yes, sir. When I previously came in front of the board, when I obtained the license, I was renovated the whole building, and they asked me, this sign's been in the town of Auburn since 40s. And they asked me, they said, actually, it's part of like the landmark of Auburn, if I could keep it and maintain it. And he said, sure. And as I stated, I spent a lot of money trying to maintain that sign and trying to get it maintained.
Now, can I ask also, I seem to remember a little bit about this, I know this has been a few years now, but before we continue, was that also part of your purchase and sales agreement to maintain the originality of the sign?
No, sir.
It was not?
No.
Okay.
I was actually going to take it down initially because it wasn't working.
Right.
And it was going to cost me a lot of money to fix it. But I took into consideration how the town of Auburn would like. I've had customers, I've had other people approach me and say, are you going to keep the sign? Are you going to keep the sign? So I said, you know, it means that much to people. I'm going to keep it. And I kept it. And it's a beautiful sign. It's just, I really didn't think it was going to be able to get it going, but I did.
Nice. I just wanted to ask that for clarification because I do remember some issues going back and forth with that at the time, watching it on television, so thank you for that.
No problem, sir.
No further, Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, I don't have any, I mean, there's no traffic signals that's going to interrupt with. No further questions.
Mr. Chicolo?
Hi there.
Hi.
I noticed in your packet, you have a description of two different signs.
Correct, sir.
Which one are we talking about?
I did two different descriptions to leave it up to the board to decide what you guys like me to do, which the size you'd like me to get. Just to show that I don't have a special size in my mind. I just want to advertise to the public. And that's the only thing I'm trying to do. If you like it, you know, for me to have small sign, I will. If you like me to have, the company I approached, they had those two different sizes, so I printed them both and put them to see if one will fit more or better than the other.
Okay, and I also noticed, it says here, your signs will function in a master-slave configuration. That means there's going to be two working signs?
How the sign works is, it's actually going to be like wireless. I can control it through the computer inside, and I'll just type in the wording I want on the sign posted, and that's how it will be function.
Okay, there will be no cables connecting the two units. Which two units are we talking about?
Because the sign goes both directions, so there's the there's the post, and one sign goes here and the other, that's how,
It's a double-faced sign, that's
Double-faced.
master slave?
correct, double-faced sign.
Okay.
And that's the only cable there will be, is from one sign to another,
All right.
for them both
All
to
right,
work
that clarifies it for me.
together.
You are aware of the other rules regarding electronic message signs where you're not going to be, you're not going to change this every 2 or 3 seconds?
Correct.
It's not going to be flashing?
Correct.
Or anything like that? You are aware of that?
Yes,
And
sir.
the company is aware of it?
Yes, sir.
I would like, I guess you've given us the decision if we decide to go ahead with this, to decide which sign we want you to buy, essentially.
I mean, if it means to the board, the size, that's why I said, I just leave it to you. I mean, if you tell me either one works, then I'll make the decision on whichever, but I want to leave it to the board.
Will the proposed sign, will the whole sign be part of that messaging center? Or will you have I'm going to call it a picture frame with the electronic portion inside that picture frame?
To be, they got their own frame. The sign, it's its own, like, it's a screen and a metal frame that goes right onto that post.
Okay.
If I'm understanding you correctly, sir. So they got their own frame that you
So
just...
the whole thing is an electronic messaging center then?
Correct, sir.
Okay.
That's all, it's like a flat screen TV, and the words come on it.
Trying to do the square feet. I'm like,
That's all I've got for right now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Maron?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for your application.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the explanation on the signage. I understand the double size. I just want to, given that we don't have a picture of the signs that you're proposing, just wanted to get a framework for the sign that's currently there. So your plan is to take that down completely?
No, sir.
Okay.
The sign that is there, I'm planning on leaving.
So this is in addition to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm sorry if I just glossed over that. Okay.
Oh, no,
So-
it's just,
That's fine. No, that answers my question.
All right,
So,
thank you.
and so in addition to what post, as I'm looking at the sign now, what post will this be erected on? Will it be, because it looks, forgive the explanation, but for me, it kind of looks like a driveway, a drive-through configuration, the way that is, so it will be the outer post?
it'll be the outer post, it's over like a grass.
Yeah, I'm familiar with, okay, but it'll be that outer post?
Yes, sir.
And it'll be, will it be below or just exactly adjacent to the sign? Will it be below the current sign?
Below the sign,
So
yes,
it'll be
sir.
in that space here?
I don't know if you're familiar
Oh,
with...
I do, yeah, thank you, sorry.
It's going to sandwich.
Excuse me, yeah, it is, I missed the frame, there is a frame that's in there, so, yeah, sorry for leading you down there, I could have looked at that a little closer. Okay, the sign that's currently there doesn't illuminate, I haven't been by there at night.
Does it illuminate?
Yeah, the sign that's there now, there's no lights on the sign now?
There is, it's functional.
Okay,
times that by
It's
that
functional.
rate.
I just haven't been by there at night.
Yeah, I've
Not double, but.
maintained it and I try to
Okay.
get it up and running.
And so, and just in your own words, the additional sign, it's a pretty big landmark. It's a pretty big sign. When you're
Yes.
driving down there, you're going to see that coming and going, right?
Yes.
So everyone knows that you're there. So just out of curiosity, the addition of this sign, is it because it's an electronic sign? What's your need to add an additional sign?
My purpose is try to increase my business. The purpose of the whole sign is if I'm running special in the store to attract customers, I can't because nobody's going to know I have a special unless they're already walking into my store. And that's the whole reason of trying to increase the customer count, to increase sales, and to increase the business and
So-
keep up with the inflation.
Okay, and I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but additional advertising. So you would advertise through this messaging board?
Correct,
You would
sir.
advertise what's on sale, specialty items, that sort of thing?
That's it. It's
Okay.
just to advertise for people that, I have.
So not just the name of the business, but advertising for
Correct, sir.
for specials and so forth?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Roach?
Just a couple things. What hours do you plan on operating the sign? Would the sign only be lit during business hours?
Correct.
Okay. Which are,
which I leave, again, I'll leave that to the board too. I mean, I could turn it off when I close business hours, the sign will go off.
and what are your business hours?
It's from 8 in the morning till 10 at night.
Okay. Okay. And, just like,
Monday through Saturday. Sunday is from 10 to 7.
okay. And if I did the math correctly, the first sign that you proposed, the smaller one, just sort of for information for everyone, would be 1,463 square feet, and then sorry.
That's okay.
And then the bigger one, because I think we need, obviously, as a board, to decide if we are going to allow it, which sign are we willing to do, and what's the difference in size between the two of them. Other than size, they would look exactly the same. Both have the double face, right?
Correct.
Just the size would be different.
The size is different. but
Okay. And you intend on changing the message how often? Like you said, specials?
As frequent as the law allows me.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
I don't have
If
any
I
other
might.
questions.
Do we need clarification on the first sign, whether those measurements are indeed in millimeters or inches on the first sign?
Well, I see it here, it says 320 millimeters.
Right.
And then what about the second one? Oh, the
So-
second one says the same thing then?
Right.
That's only about,
Small size.
that comes out to be only about, what, 3 square feet? 3.5?
Right, for one dimension roughly.
No, if I'm doing height times width.
Yeah, it's got it here, I think, right? Your height and your width.
Right. Those are millimeters, though, right? That's what I'm
That's inches, I think,
questioning.
right?
Or is that in inches? I don't,
Well, I have both here because
It's saying
you're right, at the
total.
top of the scale, it shows 320 millimeters, but they're using, in here, they're using the, what would be the
Regular.
standard inch measurement.
On the second one.
Indicator, right.
On the second one.
yeah, 320 millimeters.
So you've got like,
So I would
Gotta be
think that
inches.
even though I would probably disregard that 320 millimeter indicator at the top
It's gonna
because
be
it is on
inches.
both. I'm gonna say it's 27 3/4 inches
Yep.
height by 52.75 wide on one, and the other, it's gonna be 40 1/4 by 65 1/4.
Okay.
And for our purposes, for the bylaw that we currently have, the first one, the 27 3/4 by 52 3/4 would be within our requirements.
the, one of the things we're going to have to give the petitioner relief of is that I asked if there was a picture frame. That electronic center is going to be more than 25% of the whole sign, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, again, this is in addition to a long-standing, very large sign.
Yes.
And if you look at the Chieftain's Package Store sign, I'm sure for the people that are familiar with it, it's substantially larger, and this sign, even if we gave him the larger of the two, would not come within 25% of the existing sign.
if you're considering both of them as
Well-
one, and I'm fine with either way. I just want to be sure that we would need to give him relief from that. No.
And we can certainly do that. We can make that if we chose to, as part of the motion.
Being that it is, that other sign is large, can we go with the larger sign for him?
Again, it's requesting a special permit, so we made it with the conditions in the motion, we can do that. My only concern, quite frankly, is that I see this picture here now, and I'm almost confident there's probably a snowbank up at the bottom of that sign at this point. So obviously, snow removal will be a concern for you in the future.
It's actually, it's going to be just the way it is now, because the sign is going to be, it's high,
Right.
so it's
You're
about,
also aware we do have a height restriction, even though you have this pre-existing Chieftain's Liquor sign, as far as the electronic message centers are concerned, it has to be within a certain height requirement as well. Okay, are there any further questions of the board?
And there's, one other more question. This first pole, does that meet the setback requirements that you're gonna mount this on?
Honestly, I don't know, sir.
I think that would probably be pre-existing.
Yeah, I just... Okay.
Next door to me, he installed a sign, and it's about, he did it recently, and he was given a permit for it, and it's about the same.
Any further questions? Okay, so before we get, I think, do we want to discuss the size of sign before we make a motion?
I would like to see it stay within the bylaw, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I think that's plenty big for advertising specials and whatever he needs to put on there, because he has the large existing sign.
Just for some clarification, do both of these indeed fall within the bylaw?
Well, the smaller of the two is as close as we're going to get it, I believe.
You've got,
65
the
by 40.
smaller of the two, you've got about 4.5 times 2.5, we'll say. You've got under 10 square feet. And for the second one, you've got 5.5 times, even if you went to say 3.5, you got about 18 square feet. So for a freestanding sign, if it was looked at that way, there's got to be a pole to support it. He's right borderline with the bylaw, and the larger of the sign would be certainly well worth it. And he's really borderline with that 18 square feet there.
I do see your point. So for further discussion, do we consider this a freestanding sign, even though it's going on a pre-existing?
If you use that pole that it's mounted on, it's got to be mounted up there somehow, a sign. So it would be, you could consider it freestanding.
I agree with your interpretation, I'm just looking for the general consensus of the board as well.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have-
I think I would agree with that.
Okay. No further discussion?
Not for me.
Are there any abutters?
Do we have any abutters present? Hearing none, seeing none? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion on the floor on the 7 o'clock application?
I will make a motion to grant a special permit based upon a relief from the size of the electronic messaging center and regarding the sign with the frame size 40.25 by 65.25, which is the second sign that we have here. Okay? And as long as that we are in conformity with all the other rules and regulations applying to electronic messaging centers.
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second?
Could I just add something to this?
Oh, you most certainly can.
You know, I think having it operating just during business hours
Agree.
would be
Yep,
nice.
I would agree,
agree.
as a condition.
Right.
Business hours only.
Any further?
That was my only one.
Okay. Do I have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, sir. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good luck.
Good evening.
So we can move on. Okay, so the next applicant, we have a 715 application from Brian O'Neill requesting a variance under section 3.2.6.5 of the Auburn zoning bylaws to allow commercial, recreational, and general industrial zone on property located at 2B Elm Street, Auburn, Mass. map 57, parcel 14. Do I have a motion to open the hearing?
I'll make a motion to open.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, sir. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, Todd Broder from Fletcher Tilton, here representing CF Iron Shamrock LLC, also known as, well, doing business as CrossFit Clatta here in town. We're seeking a use variance here tonight for the property that's located as a portion of 2-4 Elm Street. I wanted to describe the use to you first, so you understood that, go through a little bit of the history, and then talk about the rationale for the variance application. So this is a CrossFit operation, not your typical Gold's Gym. I don't know if you're familiar with CrossFit, but you know, the typical Gold's Gym, you walk in, there's a bunch of weight benches, dumbbells, and people kind of come and go at any given time. There's not necessarily a schedule. It's open business hours, people come in, come out, etc. CrossFit is more of a group scenario, taught and typically done in class sections, groups of 10 individuals or so at this location, and workouts go following kind of a routine, making circuits around the facility. That group finishes their workout session, they exit, at some point later, a new group comes in. So it's not so much you show up whenever you want, it's more on a scheduled basis. Currently, the facility offers classes, and I think it's kind of important for you to know. So they offer classes Monday through Friday. They have a 5 a.m. and a 6 a.m., 9 a.m., 3:30, 4:30, and then 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. On Saturday, they have an 8 o'clock a.m. and a 9:30 a.m. class. On Sunday, they have a 9 o'clock, and it runs to about 11 o'clock on the Sunday. I give you those times because it really is more of a schedule. You show up, you're there for the 5 o'clock class, you're there for the 6 o'clock class. You don't show up at 6:30 just hoping to kind of make your way in. It's more of a schedule. I say that because the use, I think, is important for you to understand. So what happened in this case, and the reason we're here, is back in August, the applicants were looking for a location in town and found this particular location. This type of operation does well in an open space. They need a somewhat large space, and this is about 3,600 square feet. They need a somewhat large space that people can move around freely in an open space. They do well in these sort of industrial buildings where there's high ceilings and open spaces. They talked to some of the folks in the town, filed a doing business as application, and shortly thereafter moved into the location. Opened early September. Didn't understand that there was a problem, but then were visited by the building department and the building inspector in January. Came to see me, and we immediately filed this application to try and remedy the problem. The problem being this is a general industrial zone where this use is not allowed. So our clients have invested around $50,000 in the facility, have been open for a few months, and I would say they made a good faith effort in the beginning to understand what they would need for permission and permits, and didn't understand the use variance concept or the fact that this was a prohibited use. So I submit to you that they are operating in good faith at the location and attempted to make efforts to understand what they needed to do, but missed this step. So we're here under those circumstances. As you likely know, this parcel is also, not only is it in the general industrial zone, but it is subjected to the Aquifer Protection Overlay District 2, causing significant limitations, particularly at this location, for any general industrial use that may come along. Makes it very difficult to locate businesses in this location. You've seen this before, because about a year ago, one of the tenants in an adjacent space was here asking for a use variance under pretty similar circumstances, and arguing the same thing I can talk to you about tonight, which is in my brief, and which was part of your 2013 decision for the Archery and Arms location next door. But essentially, this site is so limited because it is general industrial, overlaid with the Aquifer Protection District on top of it, significantly limiting the safe uses that are allowed at this location. We think this use is one of those uses that's not all that intensive. It occupies the 3,600 square feet. It's got a small bathroom in there. Class sizes are limited because you need significant amounts of space here. So at any given time, there are only 10 to 12 people in the facility. They're not producing anything here. They're not packaging anything here. They're not selling anything other than the gym services that the club is meant to serve. So we think you can grant the relief without a substantial detriment to the public good and in keeping with your bylaw. Obviously, your bylaw allows use variances, and this is an area that, this particular district, it's obviously suited for commercial uses. It just happens to be zoned general industrial. So we think it's appropriate in this area, and we ask the board's consideration for the use variance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cussy, you have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, you've been operating for what, a few months now? This-
Yep, since September 1st.
Okay, no problems with parking? You have 10 to 12 people come, so what, 10 to 12 cars?
Could you step up there, please, sir, and introduce yourself, if you don't mind?
They're recording it, so just make sure you speak.
10 to 12 is about the max that we would see in a class. We probably average, which I could get those numbers through our computer software, we probably average more in the 5 to 6 range, and 10 to 12 would be a high-end class.
All right, so parking has not been an issue there with the neighbors either?
No.
The other tenants?
Nope.
Okay. I think it's a good use. I go by there a lot. I don't see any problems happening, and I'm good as long as there's sufficient parking. I'm good with it.
Thank you. Mr. Chacolo?
I'm all set.
Mr. Maron?
No questions other than my appreciation for teaching me how to say the name, because I've driven by it many times, and I think it's got a great cartoon on it, but my wife and I have had debates on how to pronounce that. So thanks for solving that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Roach?
Nope, no questions. Parking was going to be my only question.
Okay. My only concern here I have is, so you were granted permits by the town to open and operate. Did you approach the town for business use permits when you opened the doors? Can you give me a little background on that?
So I can tell you they filed a doing business as application, and they made several phone calls to the various departments just trying to figure out, okay, who do we speak to, what do we do next? And, all they ended up filing for was the doing business as application.
Okay.
As you know, I mean, if you're not involved in this process frequently, it's a bit of a quagmire as to who exactly do you talk to, where do you go? And I'm guessing, around that time, it could have been summer vacations for a lot of different people. So, I mean, I talked to them, asked them the same thing, who did you speak to? Because I think you would have got the right answers, but not knowing the process, I think, was just the biggest problem. And that's why we're here.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Based upon the topic that you just brought up, do you have a permit to operate?
Yeah, just recently, once informed that they needed to, they went around and obtained the signatures necessary for the permitting process. But
So
this
you
was,
do not currently have a permit to operate issued by the Selectmen of Auburn?
no.
So again, I think this is, as we've spoken to in the past with our pursuit of an overlay district on Route 20, particularly in the area of South Street to Millbury Street, and our concerns with protecting the overlay, the aquifer district, where I think this is a business that fits, although it necessarily does not fit our permitting process currently.
Correct.
So, as we have done in the past, I think we could see through this and discuss the repairing of that area at this meeting, actually later tonight.
I would agree.
Okay. So do I have a motion to close the public hearing if there's no further comments?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion on the floor for the 715 application for Mr. O'Neill?
Any butters?
Oh, I'm sorry, do we have any abutters present? I apologize. think the cold's getting to my brain, I apologize. Okay, no abutters present. Do I have a motion on the floor?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to grant, providing all permits and everything needed to run a business is followed through and done correctly.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Hearing and seeing none, congratulations, good luck.
Thank you. That's odd. All right, let me just take a peek at that, because I love my friggin' thing. Holy shit.
Okay, just check. All right, so I have 7:31. So we have a 7:30 application for Nonotuck Resource Associates Incorporated requesting a special permit under section 5.4, 6.3.2G, 832, and 6.5 for an addition to an existing non-conforming structure, relief from the front line setback, relief from parking spaces and aisle dimensions of the Auburn zoning bylaws on property located on 4 Faith Ave, Auburn, Mass., map 61, parcel 28. Is the applicant present?
Good evening.
Could you introduce yourselves, please, sir?
I absolutely will. Make sure we get this right side up for you. Stay up. Before we do that, I will give you a same colored version for your edification. It's the same plan that was submitted, but it makes it a little easier to read.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Officially, good evening. My name is David Crispin. I'm a civil engineer and a land surveyor with the BSC Group out of Boston and Worcester offices. With me tonight is Carrie Paradise, who is the program director for the applicant. So if we have questions for her, she's available. We have been studying this property for some time, since before your planning director was here, since before the building inspector was here. Took a while to get it off the ground, but they finally made the decision that they have to do something. And in talking with the building inspector, he suggested the special permit route based on the plan that we had shown to him. So we're here tonight for that front yard setback, and just for understanding, this is the front yard setback off of Sibley Road. The building that is being added on is actually further back than the existing setback. So that was the sense that this is not any more detrimental to the neighborhood. The parking requirement is one of the trickier parts to this, and that kind of comes more to the nature of the business. Nonotuck has been there for a couple of years, and they have a very unique business. They service Mass Health people. 95% of that operation is done on the road. They go to the clients' houses once in a while, and all of those people that travel out have a tiny little office here to do their business work. So they're not all here at the same time, which makes it very unique. Part of this addition on this end of the building, which conforms to setbacks and whatnot, this one here, is a conference room. And the purpose of that is, as you're probably fully aware, the rules and regulations in that industry change practically weekly, so periodically they have to get their staff together, and they're adding a little conference room. That's the crux of the problem as far as parking is concerned. And in response to that, and what they have been doing when they've been jamming people in for these little meetings without a conference room, is they've made an arrangement with the church that's right up the street, the Faith Baptist Church. I'll give you this for the record. But basically, the agreement with them says during the scheduled work week, Monday through Friday, between the hours of 9 to 5, Faith Baptist Church will allow Nantucket Resource Associate employees to use their parking lot during periods of overflow for our lot. During the evenings and on weekends, the Faith Baptist Church may use Nantucket Resources areas during periods of overflow for the lot. So they have that little parachute, and if you're not familiar with where that is, it's probably right about here on the plan. It's less than a half a block. That activity has actually been happening since you moved in, I think, a few years. It's in writing now. So that's kind of the parachute on why we really don't have about 50% of the parking that your zoning would require here. Other than that, we're going to see the Conservation Commission on this, we're going to see the Planning Board, the storm drainage, all of those issues are being addressed. So this is really just the number of spaces and the setbacks on the building. And the last comment was we did request a slight dimension on the width of the parking spaces, the length of them rather. Your bylaw says 18 and a half feet. We're going to have about 17, which means that front wheel is going to hang over the curb a little bit. But we were talking in the hall, kind of the comment was the people in South Boston would love to have parking spaces that big this time. So it's a workable space, it just needs a little tweaking with the bylaw to make it all work. So do you all want a copy of this, or should I just give one to the...
I'd like one, actually, please.
I think I'll start with you in case I run out.
It's okay. We can share. Thank you.
Just enough.
Look at that.
Welcome for questions.
Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, when the people come from the church, what do they walk right down the road?
They
Or
have to walk down the street, yes, unfortunately.
Okay, there's no
There's
sidewalk?
no sidewalk out in that area.
That could be dangerous over there. And
Perhaps you can
others-
give us some idea of how often that happens. Is it once a month or less than that?
That the church uses sidewalks?
No, that you have to put overflow parking up there.
Could you approach the podium, please, ma'am?
Yeah,
Could you introduce yourself for the record?
sure, yes. I am Carrie Parody, I'm a program director for Nantucket Resource Associates. So, we have had to use it from time to time. It varies, my staff's schedules vary day to day. There could be nobody, and there could be 2 people working in the office that day, and we may have a staff meeting, and we have a lot of people in the office that day. Our role is outside of the office.
How often do they use the church lot? Once, it just got sense once a month?
Yeah,
once?
a couple times a month.
Yeah, okay, just to get the sense.
So are you servicing, I'm sorry, but
No, go
I just
ahead.
want to clarify for the board as a whole. You're servicing clients by helping them sign up for Mass Health, or are you visiting them to continue their benefits? How does that work?
No, we provide services to, it's the Adult Family Care Program, and we provide RN, nursing and case management services to families in their homes, and the people who are eligible for the services receive Mass Health. It's a Mass Health funded program.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, Mr. Cussy, now.
All right. And also the entry to the parking lot. It required 24 feet, and you were looking for 22 feet?
Width of the driveway.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm good for now.
Mr. Chacolo?
Thank you. On a normal workday, exclusive of your overflow times, how many people are working in the building?
Like, anywhere from 4 to 20.
Exclusive of your overflow times?
How many people are employed at that office? Is
No,
that
I know that people go on the road to see patients and so forth. Exclusive of your overflow times, on any given day during the work week, how many people are working in that building?
It's very hard to say. 15?
15?
At any given time during the day? Sure.
And the proposed additions that you have here, will those add, will one or both of the additions, exclusive of overflow time, add to people on a daily basis in the building? Will it add to that 15 count you gave me?
Yes.
About how many?
I honestly don't know. As the program grows, we hire new staff.
If you've got proposed program growth and you need this new space, then you've got some idea of how that new space will be used. And why you need it, because you'll be hiring people.
Right.
How many are you planning on hiring? I'm
Additional.
trying to establish people in the building.
Maybe an additional 10 people?
Maybe
Yeah.
there's an easier way to answer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's,
Easier way.
So
to
that would mean that you have 25 people in the building at any given time on a normal work week.
that could happen, yes.
Okay. How many parking spaces do you currently have?
Let me,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't.
hold on a second. I won't go from memory, you don't mind?
I thought it was like 15.
I couldn't find that part.
I didn't see that.
And the next question would logically be, how many parking spaces will it be reduced by, and how many will you end up with if these additions are approved?
Yeah, the 16 spaces there right now, if you want to call them spaces, this is an old, very
Okay.
approximate.
So you're going to end up with less
I think basically if you were to draw the lines that aren't there, you'd end up with about one less legal space.
So how many spaces will you end up with?
This plan calls for 15 total spaces.
15.
And one of those is a handicap space, which takes up.
So the overflow condition that you refer to, and I know you have permission to do it, the overflow condition that you refer to will not necessarily be a one-off situation. It will be a daily situation.
It could be. Like I said, it's very hard to say. There are days where I have, 2 staff who are working in the office.
Well, based upon the numbers that you've given me, it's going to occur on a daily basis. So it's not necessarily an overflow thing, and I know you have permission to do it. I see that. It's just up to us to consider that,
Right. Yeah, like I
that
said.
it will be a daily occurrence, not a one-off.
But daily, we're not doing that. Like I said, people are in and out of.
I'm not
the-
interested in theory, I'm interested in reality.
This is reality, we have people, I'll have people who have meetings, home visits from 10 to 2, so they're out of the office, they might come back at 3 o'clock, but then I have visits, people who then are leaving from noon to 5.
What is your full complement of staff?
How many, currently in that office right now, I think we have 22 people.
And you will be adding another 10, you say? So we'll say approximately two-thirds of your office is two-thirds of your staff is in the office at any one time, and the other third is out on the road? Going by that numbers, if you've got about...
Yeah, probably more the other way around. It's probably, there's probably about a third of the staff that could be in the office. And
Okay.
there are days when all of my staff are in the office.
All right. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Mr. Maron?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your opening comments, you had mentioned a little bit about the space that you needed to add. You talked about the conference room. Could you divest just a little bit more into why the need for the 2 additions in the current space? Understanding a little bit more about your operation right now, I'm just curious why so much additional space is needed. And you had indicated that historically you were working to make this space work for the operation. So 10 additional people, is it additional office space and the conference room, or because it seems that there's just those are pretty large, it's a pretty large building now.
This is the conference corner at this end, the conference room end. The other space is the little cubicles that they would be adding. If you count the seats in the plan for the conference room that's in your packet, I think it has 32 seats in there, which should get your whole staff in there for a training session or whatever kind of meeting that you might want to have there. That's the goal.
Okay, but interpreting this, so the space is just taking that addition, it's larger than just the conference room. Is it the conference room plus additional office space?
Yes, this is a one-story wing, which is just the conference room. This is a two-story wing, which is office cubicles.
So that entire space on the structure that's being added on the right is just the conference room addition?
You're right, correct.
Okay. And the office space is the other. What's the existing building right now, what is that filled with? Is that office space currently?
Yes.
Okay. And so this is just to supplement the current office space because you've outgrown the space?
Yes.
No additional questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Roach?
I guess one of my questions would be, how often would you anticipate using the conference room with a full staff? I know it's sort of similar to the questions.
Right. Well, once a month, for sure, we hold a monthly staff meeting.
And what do you do now? What do you do now
We
when you have it?
we cram into a room.
Okay.
We bring in chairs from everywhere and,
Okay. And the overflow people park at the church?
yes.
Okay. So once a month you anticipate you absolutely would need the overflow because of people?
Yes, yes.
Okay. For now, that's it.
My only concern that all my other colleagues on the board have done well with answering my questions, but with your letterhead here on Nonotuck Resource Associates granting permission from the church, I'd actually think that it would be more appropriate that we have something, if we were to grant the permits, would need something on church letterhead, and identifying who Jackie Mayo is First Baptist Church. I really don't know who she is, where she stands as far as an officer of the church, and how her responsibilities lie. So I would need something, I think, a little further in terms of a parking agreement, just in my humble opinion.
Okay.
So with that being said, if there are no other questions of the board, I'd like to find out if we have any abutters present.
I do actually have one more
Oh, okay,
question.
go ahead.
Does the church property actually abut your property, or is there some,
There's a separate,
Street in between.
yeah, there's a separation parcel on a street
Okay.
that separates it.
okay. I don't have any other questions.
Any abutters present? Yes, sir, please.
Not in the butter, but I have a comment. Bill Coyle, Town Engineer, DPW Director. Couple concerns is that if the zoning board grants approval, one of the suggestions I'd have is whether or not there's an agreement that they have, whether or not that can be recorded. My concern is that if any of these properties change hands in the future, the agreement won't really have any value if it's not recorded against the property. I do have concerns with people walking down Faith Avenue on a regular basis without sidewalk, whether or not consideration would or should be given to have a sidewalk constructed at their cost and their maintenance of that sidewalk to provide access, safe access for people to utilize a sidewalk and not walk in the roadway. Also, if the board does not approve this tonight, I would be happy to look at this a little closer to see if there's any other alternatives. I do have some concern about the additions being provided and taking away from parking that's currently there. It sounds like it's needed. If there's any other options or what options that they've looked at for the addition. It looks like the existing building is a two-story building. Through the chair, I don't know if I can ask, are
Yes,
both
please.
stories currently used for office space? Or okay. And these two additions, are they both two-story additions, or are they just one floor?
The one closest to you on that plan is one story with the conference room. It's far more than two stories.
Okay. And were any alternatives looked at where potentially could have expanded parking and accommodated these additions?
We looked at several options, but architecturally, we couldn't get it to all work. This was the preferred route.
Okay. Okay. So again, just to recap, just the agreement potentially should be a recorded agreement. and whether or not, if it's going to be allowed, that some form of sidewalk be constructed. I know other projects in town with car dealerships, they have two different sites where they have their people walking from one site to the other, their customers, and they have constructed a sidewalk, and we have an agreement recorded that they would maintain that sidewalk as well. So just a suggestion.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question of the town engineer, if I might.
Oh, go please.
Would it be possible, being that this is for all intents and purposes, a symbiotic relationship with the church, being that each person uses the facilities of the other, from your knowledge, would it be possible to construct a paved walkway or pathway between the two with just a portion of a road to have to cross? In other words, versus a sidewalk, with the same idea that, you know, it has to be maintained by both of them. That way the church would benefit as well as these people, and they might be able to share costs.
Just for clarification, would it be within the town right-of-way or on, because it sounds like there's a private parcel separating the church and this parcel.
Yes.
Say that again, please?
Would that be within the town right-of-way, within the street? Because it seems as though there's a separate parcel of land separating this property with the church.
Would it,
They don't abut.
Yeah, they're not
right,
abutting.
would it come in two sections then?
I think it would have.
In other words, if I were crossing a street, just cross, and I understand that it's not really a street, but
Well, they're both on, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're both on the same side of the street.
right,
think they
but
need public
you would
access
have to
to the
cross
road.
over that right-of-way as you're mentioning, right?
Well, what I was envisioning is along the town right-of-way, because based on the plan, the right-of-way from where the edge of the road is, the town property line is probably back 10 feet or so, plus or minus. So a sidewalk could be constructed, although I'd prefer the sidewalk on private property. I suspect that
Yeah, I
for them
see.
to get permission to put the sidewalk on the property that's separating the two is probably not likely. I mean, certainly they could approach them. Again, from my perspective, the sidewalk on private property would be preferable. That way it's not within the town right-of-way. But if the board is going to consider allowing them to walk from one location to another, I'd discourage them, the pedestrians, from being in the street. I think it would be safer to have a sidewalk. That's something that they could approach, you know, the town for a permit to construct that sidewalk. We could allow them to construct it, and also we would want a recorded agreement that they would maintain it as well. So they'd have
I was
to
just
walk-
trying to think of a way that they could share costs with the church, but I see your point, and I tend to agree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from members of the board?
Yeah, I just had a question. Is the recharge system and all, is any of that installed yet?
This is all proposed.
Okay, so this is the only plan you have for that whole system?
At this point, I mean, you folks are the first step.
Right.
So the site plan review, which we'll get into the details of that system, but we know enough to tell you that it can be fully designed in compliance with the best management practice standards that are out there, which the site does not conform to now and doesn't require unless you upgrade it. But we've looked at that, we've done soil test pits, we know where the groundwater levels are. The study's been done to say, yes, this can be fully engineered, we just haven't taken the final step to fully engineer that at this point.
Okay. Because generally that comes in front of us.
If I
The
could
plan
make a
comes in
suggestion
front of
where
us.
this hasn't gone to the planning board as of yet, it may be beneficial to have these two processes go concurrently, because there may be comments during the review process that may affect, you know, the decision that you would be making tonight, and there may be some suggestions through engineering review that may modify this project. So I'd hate to see that a vote be taken tonight, then it goes through the planning board review process, and the planning board has recommendations, and that would make changes and then come back again. It almost seems as though these may want to occur simultaneously, and then both boards have an opportunity to review the plan before a decision's rendered. I don't know
agree.
how the zoning board feels about that, but I know, this type of situation, the planning board may have some input into some recommendations as well.
Usually, I agree, usually we have all the stormwater management plans in front of us here this evening before we make a decision, for review.
I mean, so, tonight they're looking for relief from parking.
Yes, if we go by the request.
I mean,
Front yard setback,
You have that application again for me, Heather?
sorry.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
You may,
And
please.
I don't want to interrupt an investigation there.
Sorry.
Go right ahead. No, that's okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to explore for a moment, and I think this was addressed, but the parcel in between, I understand the relief that the church is offering, the parcel in between, so you have a standing parcel on the corner, and then there's a parcel in between, and then there's the church parcel. And albeit, I admit, driving through it this week, it's hard to tell the topography from the snow piles. And so that was my challenge in looking at it and discerning where your lot ends and that middle parcel. But was it, given that the focus of this evening to some degree is on parking, have you explored purchasing additional land to essentially solve your parking issue on your own property?
I can tell you they have tried to find the owner of that property and have been unsuccessful, even through the assessors and deeds and trust names. They have been unsuccessful in being able to contact, for whatever reason. I didn't do it myself, but for whatever reason, they've been unsuccessful in being able to contact them. So yes, we have looked into that. We've tried.
And I say that with trepidation. I don't want to get too far into your business of whether or not that would be an option. I know you're looking to expand and work around this parking issue, but the
I mean,
parking...
I think the fact of the matter is Nantucket likes this location. It's very central for what they're doing. And if the program doesn't fit the building anymore, they really don't have much choice but to go find someplace else to do this.
And that's not what I'm, yeah, and I don't want to suggest that. I don't want to get into that end of your business. I respect that. You're certainly working diligently to find a solution for this. But the lot is significantly restrictive on parking, even with the, I take the snow out of the equation, with the numbers that they're looking at for relief, and the solution for the church parking. I would have considerable concerns about walking and, and even with constructing the sidewalk. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Any further comment? So for a review quickly here, what we're looking for is relief from sections 6.3.2G, which requires one space per 200 square feet of net floor area, in addition to an existing building with a non-conforming front yard setback under 5.4, which requires a 40-foot front yard, and 8.3.2, changing a non-conforming structure. Relief from the parking space and aisle dimension listed in 6.4 and 5. So we're really talking about our, these fundamental issues here with the permit,
right.
and whether or not they
Setbacks.
fit the requirements.
Right.
But again, I believe our town engineer brought up some legitimate issues regarding public access, walking, safety, in light of all the snow that's out there right now, especially trying to traverse that area can be difficult.
Right. So the planning board would take a look at this, and they're going to decide with the sidewalks and, the whole design.
If we were to grant relief to these issues right now, it can go in front of the planning board
Then it
for
moves.
design review, critique, and modification from there.
Correct. That's drainage.
And then it would have to,
Yeah, but-
again, as Mr. Coyle pointed out, it can come back before us for
That's- yeah.
further review as required.
Yeah, that should definitely happen.
And we can make that a condition if we chose to grant. So just for clarification on that.
So this would just give them a...
So no further comment?
The only, Mr. Chairman, the only other, based on Mr. Coyle's comments, the only other suggestion I might make is taking into account having the planning board process try to run concurrently, is whether or not we would want to suggest that the applicants at this time withdraw without prejudice and seek advice from the planning board and see how they can start that process.
I can certainly...
And it's just a suggestion, it's not a, a challenge or a request that they stall, but just so that we are truly working concurrently, because I do agree with that suggestion.
We have no objection to that, by the way. We were just told that you were the first people to see, and when we were done with you, we'd deal with the planning board. I have no objection to doing them both at the same time.
I think that in review of your current plans here this evening, that there's some certain, concerns that have been brought up, and legitimate ones at that. And I would not be opposed as well if you would like to continue it, or if you'd like to withdraw without prejudice. It's entirely up to you. I can't advise you either way. That would be, again, up to you. But we can also waive your fees in the event you want to continue this open, so you're not able to reapply and spend additional funds.
If you don't mind, we could probably continue to a date certain, and I would suggest maybe 2 months, give us, we can file with the planning board fairly quickly, and hopefully have some dialogue with them within 2 months' time to bring this back to you.
Absolutely. And it could be next month, it could be 2 months or 3 months, and that's fine. It doesn't really, we're not required to have certain fixed dates.
Honestly, I think 2 months is an optimistic date. Like you said, the snow, if we do end up putting a sidewalk up that street, there's a little bit of field work to make sure that could happen. It would have to happen in the street right-of-way, which I'm sure is 5 feet, 6 feet deep in snow right now. Knowing the topography that's there, it's going to be a little tricky to put a sidewalk up there, I know that, but I think we should explore it.
Okay?
So,
No, please.
so we can send this to the planning board before we make any decisions on the special permits?
Well, I think that at this stage, because of the additional requirements of the plan that have been addressed this evening, particularly with the town engineer's concerns, we
Yep.
could continue this right now, leave it open.
Okay.
Then they can present themselves to the planning board. And that way, we can actually kind of align, so to speak, and deal with these issues concurrently as we spoke of.
Okay.
And through the chair, I completely agree. I think that would give, in my estimation, the applicants the best opportunity to explore and not take any options off their table, but to explore the best advice with the town engineer as well as the planning board, and maybe regroup after hearing some of the concerns.
And also, to be quite honest with you, I find it interesting that you can't find the owner of that abutting property as well, which maybe...
It's typical.
It is typical, I'm sure, but we could
Absolutely.
probably shed some light on maybe options with that as well.
Maybe
along the
somebody's
road.
watching on TV.
You never know, right?
I would also just like to say...
taxes, right?
Probably not, that happens all the time.
Oh, no.
I would just, in addition to the point that was brought up by the thing from the church, it's great, but they sell that church tomorrow, you have no rights to park there. Whatever would happen with the church, I would also be very strongly an advocate of the fact that it would absolutely have to be something recorded. It gotta be a legal easement. It can't just be like a letterhead thing that they could take away, or that would be something that would have to be done more formally in order for me to get on board.
Duly noted.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's an excellent point, and we would want a long-standing, binding solution for you, is what we would want to try to achieve.
And again, that would not be to be difficult, it would be actually to protect you as well, protect the town's interests, make sure all parties' concerns are being addressed. So, then I would need for you, if that was your intention, is to request a continuation.
I would request a continuation at least 2 months.
Do I have a motion on the floor to accept the continuation?
Motion to accept?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you're all set, thank
Do
you
you
very
have a
much.
date certain at this point, or?
We won't need one, actually, as long as you contact the code enforcement department, they'll put you on our agenda. We'll leave this matter open for now.
We'll see you when the snow melts.
Yeah.
And I don't think you have anywhere near as much as the South Shore does, because that's why
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Comfortable with it? Yeah.
Should be interesting. Oh, look at that.
All right, so we're a little behind schedule, so our next one, 7:45 PM, applicant Dorothy Rossoff requesting a variance under Section 5 of the Auburn zoning bylaws to allow access via an easement on the abutters property for property located at 10 Main Lane, Auburn, Mass. Map 50, parcel 44, is the applicant present? Could you approach, please, ma'am, and state your name for the record?
Hi, Dorothy Rosa.
Okay, and can you give us an overview of what you'd like to do, please?
We'd like to have a variance to put an easement on the abutting property to 10 May Lane, as they'd like to put a driveway up there, so they don't have to go all the way down the road. I talked to Caleb and Sheila, and they said this would be the way to go about doing it.
Okay. Now, I need a little bit of background, additional information on that. Are you the owner of both parcels of property at this time?
I was originally the owner of both properties, and then I sold property to my father-in-law, and he owns now 10 May Lane, and I own 6 May Lane. And when I had bought the property in 2001, I was told it was a buildable lot. In October 2013, I got clarification of zoning interpretation from the town, from Nick, that it's a buildable lot for a single-family home. So my father-in-law marketed it, and then we found out someone had come in and said, "Oh, no," and they complained that somebody's going to build there, and they said, "Let's look at this," and I guess it's a gray area as far as the land and the road, because it's a private way of how it would set up. So the easiest way would be, and the best way for everybody's best interest would just to do an easement on 6 May Lane, which is about, I think it's about 15 feet, to allow a driveway to go there, so they wouldn't have to go all the way down, and so fire trucks or anyone else could be able to turn around and not have to go down the street where their driveway is at that end.
Anything else to add, please, before I ask members of the board?
No.
Okay, just checking. Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, is this the lot we're looking at?
You're looking at lot.
I have a hard time figuring out what I'm,
So it's, the 10 May Lane is lot number 44,
okay.
and 6 May Lane is lot number 59.
Okay.
Is lot number 59. okay.
59 is 4.
Go back to this page.
So 10 May Lane is 74,000 square feet.
That's what you're talking about. That long rectangle. That's, I believe.
Okay, 44, and what's the other one, 59?
59. So you're going up the street. If you're looking at 59, you're going up.
Okay, so the lot we're talking about is 44?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, right here.
59
so-
is here.
Yep.
They're looking for this type of easement here.
Right, right. Okay. So, the requirement is what, 180 feet of road frontage on
60.
160 square feet,
160?
which there is. I guess the question is
Yeah,
as
there's
far as the narrowness of the road.
Yeah, we're talking
Why we
width.
wanted to put a variance and easement on
Right.
May Lane.
So basically, you'd be looking for like a hammerhead lot, they'd call it, right? If you put a 50-foot right-of-way off the other, you could make a hammerhead lot out of this, I believe.
Sure.
Well, taking 50 feet off of,
I don't know if it would need 50, or I think it just needs just a little bit. I think it would be the 15.
50 is the minimum,
Is that what it is?
50 would be the minimum for a hammerhead
yeah,
load.
50 would be the minimum. And
Okay.
so you would have that much, you could take it off the other lot.
Oh, yes, there's definitely enough.
It'd still have enough frontage for that house.
Yes,
And then you would have the square footage for
for the other side.
Right.
Yep.
one house, though.
Yes, just one single-family home. And there's a buyer who has put in an offer, and they live in Auburn, and they're buying it for their parents. So it would just be a regular single-family. I think they're deciding to do a ranch or something like that.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Cussy, you have any further questions?
So you've been paying taxes on this
Yes, as a buildable lot, yes.
as a buildable lot. Do you don't happen to know what they value it at?
My father-in-law has the,
Yeah, I just, I don't know what they value the lot at. I've just,
This one.
okay.
This is the one before.
Mount Quarterly, all right. Where's the assessment? Should be able to see that.
This is the one before that.
So they don't even tell you, so, yeah, okay, so it's, okay. Yeah, so it's, You've been paying as if it's a buildable lot, that's all.
Correct.
Yeah, because you're paying good money. If it wasn't buildable, the tax rate would be way lower, you know what I mean? So we have been paying as a buildable lot,
Okay.
which is important. I'm good for now.
Okay,
Let
thank you.
someone else talk.
Mr. Chacolo?
Hi, just on the subject of the Hammerhead lot, if you took 50 feet off the other side, by definition, that Hammerhead lot, you would need 160 feet going across it. The frontage would have to appear somewhere, so you would not be able to make a Hammerhead lot out of that.
Okay.
What do you mean, the depth?
Right, they'd need 160 feet this way. The
Along
frontage would have to
along-
appear somewhere within that Hammerhead, so that you wouldn't be able to do that. Where does, first of all, are we dealing with a portion of this May Lane that is a town road, and then a section that's a private road?
No, the entire street's a private street. All the homeowners own.
It's a
portion of the
private street.
Right.
Okay. The need for you to have this easement, tell me what the need to have this easement is.
I was told by Caleb it was needed. That's just what I was told. Everybody was a little confused about the layout. I know the town plows it, but it's a private street, but the town doesn't have to plow it. I guess they have an agreement with other homeowners on the street and how they do it. I did speak with Bob earlier today. I guess it's a question of where the house is going, where their driveway was going to be, and that's why we came up with, we would get an easement so that the driveway would be further up this end, and then there would be no encroachment on neighbors, and everybody would have their privacy still.
Is there anything at the end of the lot where the current house resides? At the end of that lot, is there any distinction made in the road that would require you to have entrance to this land on an easement?
On the lot that's down, the person on the end of the road, or?
No,
10
the
May Lane.
house that's currently there that's boarded up.
Yes, on 6 May Lane.
Pardon?
6 May Lane, right?
Yes.
Yes.
At the end of that lot,
Yep,
then this lot starts.
yes.
What is there that's unique about that area that's requiring you to get an easement on 6 May Lane?
They're saying that the road is narrowed, so they needed to come up more, up the street more. That's where it's a gray area. I guess it's a narrow road. At one point, before all of the trees and people had inhabited the place, it was much wider, and it has slowly gotten narrower and narrower. So in order for there to be enough, I guess, roadway frontage, width-wise, it would need an easement on 6 May Lane.
Now,
Is-
excuse me.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Is 6 May Lane unoccupied because of any restriction or bylaw or permit
No,
that is not able to be given because of its location?
no.
I guess I would like to withhold a few questions, and I'm thrilled that the town engineer is here. I'd like to ask him a couple of questions if he's familiar with everything.
I have spent some time myself and the other engineer in town today looking at this, because it is somewhat of a complex situation. I can start out by saying that this lot, number 10 May Lane, was an A&R plan that was approved back in 1959. Currently, the roadway along that frontage only exists on paper. You can't drive along that section of roadway. It is a private road. the town plows the roadway and is one of our more difficult streets that we have to plow. The width, didn't measure it today, but I would say we're probably looking at a maybe a 12-foot width of roadway.
You're being
And
generous.
that might be generous.
You're being generous
Probably-
because I
probably
drove
10
it.
Probably 10 feet. So, again, it has a lot that was approved by the planning board, but now, even though it has been approved, or was approved 56 years ago, in any A&R lot, for the planning board to currently approve, would have to have access to an existing and passable way. That existing road is not, along this frontage, is not passable. So I think that's probably why they were looking to get an easement, because their section of roadway is not passable. It may be more appropriate that they upgrade this section of roadway for the distance of the 160 feet of their frontage, which would typically be required for an A&R lot. I think that unfortunately, none of us were around back in, or not, certainly not here in 1959 to know what the intent was of the original petitioner when they cut out that lot. They created a right-of-way. The plan on file just shows a right-of-way. It shows May Lane coming down, and at that time, stopping right where this land began. So whether or not the intention was at that time, if the planning board approved it, they may extend the roadway and eventually build on that section of land, but the roadway doesn't exist. In fact, we checked to see if it existed back then, and back in the archives, from 1938 don't show a roadway existing here through the old aerials, the historic aerial photographs. So the road wasn't there. It actually exists pretty much as it does today. So the lot does exist, but it doesn't have adequate frontage currently to access the lot, and that's why they were looking to get the easement. My concern is if you grant this easement, that it would set a precedence for a lot of situations that we probably wouldn't want to see. Many other lots where they don't have adequate frontage would be presented to you to say, you've done this before, we want to access our lot, we don't have frontage on a suitable road either, but we can cut across these 3 lots to get to this house, to this property. So certainly it would set a precedence. And for us, or when I say us, the DPW, for plowing it, certainly if they were to look to develop this lot and improve that section of roadway, certainly I don't think, and I can't speak on behalf of the planning board, but I think for one house, I can't imagine it would be expected that they'd have to pave the entire roadway. You know, there'd be improvements probably required to make it passable for fire apparatus to be able to get down there. Certainly, it's already a bad situation. If there were a fire, it's difficult. The only way to turn around is through the current driveway circulation that exists today. So whether or not the planning board would want to see some sort of turnaround at the end to facilitate emergency vehicles. But I think that's something that, if the planning board does not approve this variance, I would recommend that maybe they go possibly through the planning board process for improving that section of roadway so that it can be developed. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So that would be improving the road to the existing? Like, what's before it, just upgrade it to that?
It'd be up to the planning board on exactly what they would require, but currently along their frontage, you can't drive a vehicle along that frontage. It's overgrown, there's trees, so there is currently only a paper street there.
Okay, now I understand.
Say that again, you can't drive in front of that lot?
No, you cannot,
I drove it.
no.
I drove it.
Well, I can meet you out there. Along their lot.
I
not-
drove it all the
not
way
number
down to the
6.
blue house.
No, number 10.
I drove it all the way down to the blue house
The
and then
blue
turned
house on the
around.
right is well, there's a house on your right, that's number 6.
Right.
There's a house on your left, right where that driveway is located, where you turn around.
Yes.
Is just about the beginning of this parcel. This parcel begins just a little bit uphill from there. From that point, it goes all the way down towards the water on the right-hand side.
Is there a for sale sign on this piece of property?
There is, yes.
Okay.
And the for sale sign is
Then
actually
okay. All
I
right.
have
So I
pictures.
drove by it, and you are being generous at 12 feet wide. And I went down, turned around, and came back up.
Right.
But it certainly appeared that I traversed the whole front of the lot.
I can show you the parcel on the GIS maps, if you'd like.
Now, there's a house down beyond that.
Yes.
And I have pictures.
Yeah, and that's where I turned around.
Yeah.
That's private property. Where you turn around.
This is the lot in question,
Yes.
okay? So when you came down,
Yeah.
at this point, you are now on private property. Okay, that's not the road. So their frontage
I see.
does not have.
I see. I took it to mean, fantastic. Thank you very much. I did drive that, but that was not their frontage that I
Correct,
drove.
that's a driveway on the neighbor's property.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
thought
if I can follow,
the
Mr. Coyle,
frontage was here,
in your estimation,
the road went like that.
if this easement were to be granted,
This is just a driveway.
what, in your estimation, for emergency vehicles, fire, EMS emergency vehicles, to access, if it were to be built, if it were to be constructed, can you comment on the access for emergency vehicles to that property, if this easement were to be granted?
Depends on where they put the house, how long the driveway would be. As it is, any emergency vehicle would be going down a 10-foot roadway, which is mainly a driveway. They would have very limited ability to turn around at the, and again, it really depends on how the house is constructed, whether or not they'd be backing out. This time of year, certainly driveways are narrow. I think it would be a disservice to allow it, just because whoever owns that house eventually is not going to have safe access for emergency vehicles.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I don't have any additional questions, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to hold any additional questions and after I hear from abutters, if they're present. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Roach?
All right, so I just want to get this straight. The proposal is that the access would go from May Lane onto what now is the lot of 6, and then onto 10 in order to gain access to 10.
Right, well, May Lane, as you know, is a private way, so the portion, the street in front of 6 May Lane is owned by 6 May Lane.
Right.
And the portion in front of 10 May Lane is owned by 10 May Lane. So when they say it's, the neighbor's driveway is technically on 10 May Lane. That front right there is 10 May Lane's property, where I have pictures where an oil tank is. So it's, there are streets where fire trucks can't turn down on a dead-end road. I think this has got where the driveway is and where the street is plowed. Where they stopped was where, it could go down further, but it stopped. So they can definitely turn around now. That's why we were proposing that we put it up further so that everybody was happy, and that the person who does purchase the home doesn't have to worry about it becoming an issue if it's already set in place, your driveway's going here because we're putting the easement here, and then that helps everybody. The fire truck doesn't have to go down further if there was ever a need for it. But I do have pictures of the land.
I'd like to see those.
Disagree with what he said.
We're also using the driveway, and the house would be at the end of the driveway. So the access to the emergency vehicle would just be right there.
So if you look
Like
at,
any other driveways in town, you drive down and get flowers.
Yeah, just like 6.
so this is the regular street, so you're coming down this road here.
This is right here.
Right, and then right now, and these pictures were taken today. If you look, here's the U, it goes all the way around here. And this is another road to a driveway to someone else's property.
Show me on here where this is.
So it goes 6 Lane, 10 Lane, so we're talking down here.
Okay.
And this is, a
This.
turnaround here, right. This is this, which has since collapsed today, unfortunately, or the last couple of days, unfortunately. It's
Okay,
just
so
a-
this is 58.
It's just a shed.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
the actual house, so it goes all the way here.
And their
that's why we
driveway
weren't
starts
really-
here.
Right, and that's why we weren't looking for a hammerhead, we were just looking for just enough so that when the new person buys it, they're gonna put their driveway here, their house is gonna go up here, they're gonna set back, so they want their privacy too, so they don't wanna be encroaching on anybody else either.
So show me on this where the driveway is gonna start in the proposal, right here?
Yeah, however many feet that
Okay,
is.
but it's gonna cross over this
Right,
lot?
right.
Okay, okay,
Just make it easier for all the parties involved.
okay.
And as far as the roadway goes, did anybody else want to see this?
You wanna see the one she has of, yeah, you want this? Yeah, absolutely.
Starts, if you don't mind.
My pen didn't work very well, but she can show you on that map.
Right.
Yeah.
Where the driveway is gonna go is what I wanna see.
Right into the corner of the lot. And then the existing road is here, tapering off to the left.
It goes all the way down, and
I
where the
know
snow
the
will
road.
stop, it goes down further, it's just, there's so much snow.
And that's where the lot starts,
No,
right?
the lot starts much further up. Yeah.
You can't see it from here where it goes.
Yeah. The lot starts up here, and this is where you're seeing the snow pile.
Right.
Because this
where
isn't
you
a
went.
house, this is a shed.
This is where you went down.
This is
today.
what I drove down.
Right, that's a different party.
Right,
That's
this is what I
somebody
thought,
else's house.
my apologies to the town engineer also, because that's what I thought I was driving in front of the lot, and I
No,
was
that's
not.
somebody else's.
You were on private property.
So that this is just on paper here, there's nothing here.
Right. No, it goes down to here.
Right,
There
see
is
this?
something there. You can physically drive straight down. What they're using as their driveway is technically, part of it is the road.
It's so cold.
The other thing is, this is odd as you saw, and I'm probably not because of all the snow, but it's a dirt road. It's a dead-end dirt road. So I don't know what we would be fixing per the planning board for, a small section or even the whole section because when this house was built, it was fine here, and then there's an existing house here, so there's an existing house over here.
You're saying that you could drive this so that this area here, in other words, what you're pointing at here, it goes here, right?
Right, this is right here. This is the land over here. This is the street. This is a different, somebody else lives in, they
Right.
own
Okay.
another house over here.
So you're
there's
saying-
two houses already down there.
You're saying right down here?
Right. We wanted to actually start over here. That's why we wanted to come off of 6 May Lane for several reasons. One is so that there's no issues with any fire trucks or anything like that. And obviously, the homeowners want to put their home up here. They've already have an idea. They'll keep trees, so there's, separation amongst the two, so everybody still has their privacy. My thing was, there's already a house here, and there's already a house here, number 60. I don't know why it's not marked on this map, but there is a house there, and the owners are here, who own both this house and that house.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so there's no lots beyond this. This is the
No,
last
that's
lot.
the last lot.
So,
And I know you guys have this in your packet as well, that it was already approved, it was already, the interpretation was already,
2013.
that it was a single-family built lot.
right.
Mr. Kisame?
And nothing was mentioned.
I just want to see where
They
the
have that in their packet.
driveway's
Yes.
indicated. So
So this is where everybody said is the best place to do the driveway, so that if there's no going down further, and these people want to keep, obviously, when you're building home, you want to keep privacy, so they want to keep the trees up amongst everybody.
Like a win-win. It doesn't interfere with the neighbors. It comes up here and should satisfy the engineer's problem with any type of issue.
So from,
They're putting the house over here, which is right at the end of the driveway usually.
okay. Now, with that explanation, your perspective would be that this is constructed as a driveway?
Yeah.
So that emergency vehicles would access a
Right.
home, say here.
Which is up here at the end of the driveway.
Correct.
Which isn't anywhere near where they already have to do if they were to go down now with the existing homes.
Okay. Thank you very much for that explanation. I appreciate it very much.
Actually, I think this is the engineer.
Excuse me. Okay.
Yeah.
So do we have any abutters present that would like to speak? Please, sir, if you could approach the podium and introduce yourself.
Linda and Tom Cavallari, we are the people who live down the end of May Lane.
58 and 60 May Lane.
My understanding of May Lane, as I know it to be, we've been there 45 years. May Lane is a right-of-way, is a lane. Abutters on each side of May Lane this particular property, she would own 15 feet over the stone wall. We have 15 feet to the stone wall. So that where our property begins is where her property on the other side would begin. So therefore, they would need permission from us to have access to that frontage. It's my understanding. I don't know the laws.
May Lane right now ends at my front lawn. If you-
The
if anybody has
roundabout that you
physically
went
been there to
around
see.
is private.
I made the turnaround.
That turnaround was made by you, and that is just on,
What's that?
That-
and that's on your property?
Yes.
We made that, yes.
Okay.
May
It's
Lane
been
kind
there
of,
forever.
May Lane stops and it's a dotted line that continues. You know, if you look on the map, it's a dotted line.
Does the town have a length of May Lane? Is there a footage? I mean, you know, is it 1,000 feet long, or, I mean, is
As far
there?
as the plowing is concerned, the highway has done a fantastic job, but years ago, we, the drainage problem from water puddling up on Old Common.
Yeah, yep, I remember that.
Okay, and we allowed them to put drainage down through our property to try to
Dry it
get
up.
rid of that, which
Yep.
it did. And they agreed to more or less, you know, maintain the road basically during the winter for plowing and.
Right.
which-
But May Lane as it exists is not,
It's only one lane. If anybody's physically been there, you have to really, it's
Oh, yeah.
kind of a unique situation.
Yeah, I've
And,
known it for a long time, but it just,
but their access at the stone wall is ledge, trees, and has been for as long as we've been there. So that's, their access would be, it's
And that's
our,
my main concern, is where the access would be. And as it is right now, everybody, the rubbish man, a lot of times the town, whoever comes down, even the UPS, they'll back down from Old Common.
yeah.
Because there's no place, even with the turnaround, you can only turn around maybe a 20-foot truck and if you're having troubles then. And that'd be on my, you know, on my property, you know, so.
So are you here to tell us that you're opposed or in favor of the project, or you just have questions, or I'm just trying to just, you know?
just trying to
I'm not-
see
I'm
what was
not
going
against- I'm
on.
not against things happening, I just want to make sure that it doesn't affect my property, because there's a seasonal stream also, you know, that's there, that's runoff. You know, how much traffic can May Lane handle?
We like,
You know,
like
there's-
the people.
There's 5 of us at my house now, I rent the house next door to 2 people, so there's 7 cars. I don't know what anybody else has, but, you know, I mean, we all have to be polite to each other. There's times when I want to leave and I have to wait for somebody to deliver the oil or whatever, and, you know. So, I'm retired, I'm not in a hurry. So, but again, I'm not against, you know, I'm not against progress, I just want to make sure it doesn't hurt my property, that's all.
Okay.
You know, basically. And,
Exactly why we're for variance.
We don't want to affect their.
yeah, and the idea what she's talking about, there's an island of where my land starts. And I got land that goes this way and then land that goes straight ahead. My land goes to the water and out under the water. And the road is a dotted line from where she's talking about, where my gas tanks are, to the water. And years ago, if you went on a clear day, you could see one station with there was a bridge that went across there at one point. And
That's why
nobody
May
has
Lane
crossed
is-
that since I've been there over 40 years. Ain't nobody gone across my front lawn yet, you know, so, you know, with a car or anything else, you know. So, I just, like I said, I just have concerns like drainage, traffic, and where it's, you know, where the access is gonna be. Other than that,
Okay,
that's up to you.
thank you very much.
Thanks.
I don't think traffic will be an issue because
If you could just address the board through the microphone, just so the folks at home can hear.
I don't believe traffic will be an issue because the people who are interested in buying it are looking to build the house for their parents to retire in. So I don't think that should be a major issue. And the variance would certainly satisfy the neighbors' issues with privacy or encroachment because we're pulling it up the street. So we think it's a win-win for everybody.
Okay.
If I could add, if the board was going to entertain this variance, one of the things that I would recommend is that where they're suggesting that they have an easement, or whether or not that be of sufficient area to allow for a turnaround. Right now, when we plow that road, we have to plow a private driveway just to turn around. We can't get down there and plow that unless we backed out, and we can't back out. So if it's an opportunity and the applicant is willing to provide the easement sufficient for a turnaround, which quite honestly, I think should be shown on paper, so we have something that's documented, that's getting approved. At least then, the town would have the benefit of having an area that they could turn around in, versus turning around on private property currently. And then again, it also depends on now, what, is that a right-of-way, is it an easement? You know, it's just, it's somewhat complicated on how that gets done.
Indeed it is.
And from my perspective, the biggest thing that, through DPW, we're looking for is, if we're gonna add another house, you know, typically, obviously, there's gonna be more cars that go there, may not be, 20 cars a day, but it may be 4 trips, maybe 10 trips a day back and forth. And in the winter months, that can be difficult. So for us, we have to plow it and maintain it. It is a private road, and just as far as the discussion about Hammerhead, you wouldn't be able to do a Hammerhead lot there, because that's only allowed on an accepted town road. So I'm looking at it saying we're kind of going with, more lenient than even a Hammerhead lot. We're saying that, there's frontage, and I guess what, it's kind of got us into this is back in 1959, the planning board approved the plan for a lot. So if it's going to be allowed, I think that they should present a plan that shows this easement that they're talking about, because right now they're proposing an easement, but you have nothing on paper showing you what that easement is. So it should be either an easement, and then whether or not that easement is sufficient to allow for a turnaround, and then who is the easement granted to? Because if the town is now going to have an area to turn around, whether or not there's also language there granted to the town to allow emergency vehicles to turn around, DPW plow vehicles to turn around. So I think those issues should be ironed out too.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask one more question of the town engineer. When you say turnaround, are you referring to not a full cul-de-sac, but like half of a cul-de-sac?
Right, it wouldn't necessarily have to be the size of a normal cul-de-sac. We'd have to look at whether or not it would be a 60-foot diameter. A traditional cul-de-sac would be 100 feet paved and 120-foot right-of-way. Okay. Something that would allow or accommodate vehicles to go in and turn around. I mean, I think it's something that it's a balance of minimizing impacts, but also trying to improve the accessibility of these lots. And I think it benefits the applicant as well, because if you're going to have fire apparatus down there, they need an area to turn around in.
If indeed this turnaround was acceptable to everybody, would that negate the need for this easement because entrance could be provided off that turnaround?
It all depends, and it may be something that they may want to consult with an engineer or a surveyor, because if they get into a situation where they're changing property lines, now they have to go to the planning board for approval for an A&R lot. So this, in looking at this today, it sort of just kind of snowballs when you look at it and how these things evolve and how you can accommodate this. Perhaps an easement would be the easiest way to do it, and it would probably be on Lot 6, where it's not currently wooded, and whether or not that area would be utilized for this turnaround. And if it's shown as an easement, we could check, but I believe that could, I think only changing property lines would have to go to the planning board. I don't think an easement would have to go to the planning board, because they're not changing property lines. So it'd be an easement granted to not just the abutter on Lot 10, but also granted to the town as well. And then, to complicate it even more as I'm saying it, whether or not the town can even accept an easement without going to town meeting. So as much as it would seem somewhat simple, it becomes complicated on how you
I think this
approve
has to be a methodical approach regardless, and it has to be broken down into small sections and taken.
I think you start with requesting a plan of what they're proposing. Because I think once you get a surveyor or an engineer involved, they're gonna look at it to make sure it's being done legally from their, their professional sense of what they're proposing, because they're not gonna stamp something that they don't feel is being done correctly. So I think having a plan presented to you first, and, and if they can develop that plan, at that time, we can maybe work with them and try to see how this can work for them to get what they are trying to accomplish, and also for the town to maybe have some improved access to that area.
One issue I have is, this is the last lot on the street. All the houses were allowed to be built, and the last person that's gonna build is gonna take the cost of making it right. I mean, they should have never approved, like all the other houses, if fire was an issue and ambulance was an issue, That's just one issue I have. I mean, there's
Right,
one
I don't know
lot
how the
left.
lot ever got approved in the first place.
And you're paying taxes on an approved lot.
Well, it's actually, I believe on the assessor's card, it says it's not a buildable lot, and on the assessor's card, it says does not have constructed frontage.
I just don't see how you could pay that amount of tax on an unbuildable lot.
Well, again, the assessor's card says it's, right, it says it's not a buildable lot right on the assessor's card.
Yeah, and they were charging as if it's, the
Well,
lot's
maybe it
valued.
would have been double that if it was buildable, I don't know.
No,
Check with the assessor.
that's about right, looking at it.
And we've run into these issues recently as well, where we've had conflicting information from different departments within the town, and we're here trying to make a decision and try to clear that up. Yes, please.
No disrespect to the town engineer, but I don't think, and I do respect Mr. Hussey's whole thing on, it is the last lot on the street, and it's also further up from being at the end. So the fire department in a turnaround doesn't affect this lot because it's further up. It's not going down the street. And that's why the easement was going to be on 6 May Lane. It only affects 6 and 10. It doesn't affect the town road or anything with the town because it's a variance for 6 and 10 where that's where the driveway would go. So it doesn't affect, which I showed you on that. So we're not looking to go down further. That way we don't affect, and I think maybe he didn't see that, we're not going down further. They don't want to do that. And I had talked with Nick and Caleb, and they said to show, when I came in, to show you where the variance is gonna go, or where we'd want the easement to go, so that it didn't need to be, we didn't need to pay all that extra money until it's time to have that done. Because it's pretty straightforward. This is where they wanna put the easement. It doesn't affect the neighbors. We want to respect the Cavalaris and their houses down there. There's no need for worries about the fire department because they have the driveway they're pulling into if they're coming to that house. As far as, it has been a dead-end dirt road since the Cavalaris owned it since 1920s. It's nothing has changed. That's my concern. As far as the town plowing it, it's a private road. The town is great, the DPW is great for doing it, and that's awesome for the Cavalaris and everyone else, but it's still a private road. And nothing is going to change for them other than they're gonna shove snow in someone else's driveway when they go by. That's really it. They don't need to turn around because it's not going down any further, it's coming up closer. If you remember what I showed you on there. So it doesn't affect anything with the turnaround or the other two houses that are already down there. So we just want to make this as simple as possible for everybody involved and to move forward for the buyers, for us, and for the Cavalaris, the neighbors, and everyone else. We don't want it to stay as a dead lot. We'd like to be able to build in the town and make it better. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other abutters that'd like to speak? Could you just introduce yourself, please?
My name is Gosha Perez, and actually, I'm the daughter of the potential buyer. I'm here because his English is a little broken, so we're kind of in the same, we've met the neighbors, we've talked, we've discussed everything, nobody has an issue with anything. What we're looking to get is literally the edge, not so we don't pull in a drive from going all the way to his house, and then you take a sharp right to go to your way, to go to your street, to go to your house. We're taking a corner, literally just when you're in that street, you're going like this into the house. So even when you're gonna be pulling into the driveway, you don't make any turns, nothing like that. You literally have you're going right, just soft right into the house. Because the house, the lot is short and long, so the house will have to be built where it's, you can't put it this way. Or, it literally will just go a little bit to the right and there's gonna be the garage. So we're not looking to make any turns, any ways or anything like that. And there's a stone wall there. And where the for sale sign is, it's actually on her property, the 6 Main Lane right now. And there is kind of like a small entryway right there. And the 50 feet would be covering that. So you're talking about when you're standing in front of it, just for a car to go in through, whatever the minimum frontage would be, approved by you guys, just to have the driveway and straight into the house. So the house would probably, the driveway, probably the house wouldn't be even going as far as him there, where he owns the house. So it's not disturbing anything, it's just going straight to the right. And just like UPS trucks, any big deliveries, they turn right back around. It probably would have been the same thing with the fire department, I assume. Just hit reverse and go back. We're trying to make it, we would love a cul-de-sac in there, but I don't know if it's really possible. So we're trying to make it, again, like as minimal cost to everybody as possible. And it would be for my 2 folks. So like you said, maybe four times a day, going into work and then coming back. My dad is already sitting home, so there's one way right there. Maybe we'll come on the weekend, so the traffic would be minimal. So if anything, he probably would be the one to probably fix the road a little bit during the day if he's sitting home.
I'll say that I'm taking
No, but that's the kind of guy. So we're not looking to make any curves, any distort anything or anything like that. It's just literally just go whoosh, and that's it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
One more comment. We're talking fire apparatus. It may be something that the board may want to consider is referring this to the fire chief for recommendation.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
I mean, I wonder if the town would be willing to pitch in and do something,
It's a private road. We are allowed to maintain up to $5 per linear foot of a private road, which includes plowing, but we're not allowed to make a betterment. I mean, looking at the plan, it's the roadway, I can't tell from the aerial if the roadway is completely within the right-of-way. Again, we don't have a plan. We know they're saying they're going to put the house here, the driveway's going to go here, but we have nothing on paper showing where this easement that they're proposing is going to go. So, it's whether or not the board can give some indication on what their support would be. I know they don't want to spend any money, and they want to make it simple, but I want to make it safe. So sometimes there's a balance between making it safe and ultimately you have to, if you have an easement, you have to hire a surveyor to draw up a plan that shows the easement. It all has to be recorded. I think that information should be presented to the board. If you're going to approve an easement, you should be approving something that you know where it is. Otherwise, who knows, you don't know what you're going to get for an easement. It could be right over the very corner of the parcel.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board members?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there was one final question I had for the applicant. And in the letter that we received, you had mentioned you've encountered a hardship regarding the land. Could you divest just a little bit into what you feel that hardship is specifically?
So I guess the hardship's actually the land itself. We were, when the A&R was done in 1959, it was approved in 2013 when I had a zoning interpretation done. Nowhere in there did it say anything about it not being a buildable. In fact, it specifically said very clearly that it was a single-family dwelling could be built there, and that was from the existing building inspector who's here now, Nick. And then, again, when the new buyers wanted to come in, they were told that you couldn't build there, so they were obviously upset I was obviously upset. My father-in-law, who I sold it to, was obviously upset. So, you know, the land itself has a hardship because you're saying there's not enough roadway for frontage, and that's why the easement onto 6 May Lane would be the answer for that. As far as money and safety, I don't see that those two being taken in play here because it's not, we're not, like I said, making it go down further where a fire truck would have to go down deeper into the street. A fire truck's already gonna go that way for the neighbor's house. They're not, we're actually up closer and we're making it easier for a fire truck by doing that easement to come onto there and go. I'm in agreement as well as, you know, the buyers, my father-in-law, everyone's on the same page. It was just a matter of, I was told to come out, to come here and present it to you and to see how you all felt about that and the legality of it.
Thank you very much for addressing that.
Thank you.
Could I just ask, do you have a copy of that 2013 decision, by any chance? I just want to see your copy of it and who signed it. And there's no signature on this, though.
Right, that was, she did just make a good point. You couldn't see it when you drove down with all of the snow, but there's already a makeshift driveway that was going to the, towards the basement doors of 6 May Lane, that they were just going to take over and make theirs. If the snow wasn't there, you could see that, but there is a second, is actually a U-shaped driveway for May Lane, and then there's a third driveway that goes up, and I know the Cavaliers know where that is too. It goes right up to, and that, you know where that is. So it's much further than even what you're thinking.
I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, it's actually a lot closer to 6 May Lane than it would be to, so it's much easier. It doesn't affect the safety of anybody, if that's a concern.
How long has your tax bill been coming saying unbuildable?
Right.
Has it always said unbuildable lot on it?
It's never said unbuildable. That's why, until I guess.
The assessor's card, not
Oh, this is the assessor's
Yeah,
card.
It's never, we've actually always paid on a buildable lot.
Exactly.
You saw the bill, and we've never been told. So if that's the case, it causes a lot of problems.
Right.
And like you just saw, the 2013 from the current building inspector says, it is a single-family buildable lot.
It's always been taxed as one.
As well. Thank you.
So I see this as again, as the engineer pointed out, we have a multifaceted issue here. And I would actually, in my humble opinion, think the best course of action here would be to continue this matter, allow them to keep it open on our end, present some suggestions or ideas to the planning board. And again, this is only my idea. And then come back with a solid plan that would demonstrate where your easements would be, what type of road improvements would be required. And again, I don't think nothing's gonna happen out there for a couple of months anyway with the snow out there. But it gives you some time to work, your plans become a little more concrete.
Now, when you say road improvements,
Well, I believe that we talked about the width of the road, and so you'd have to have some type of ability to widen that area.
that would be required, I mean, it's a private road, so I would have to get all the neighbors, I can't widen. There's 56 mainly on.
Why are we responsible for widening the road for
Right.
everybody?
I would
Well,
want-
because we have see, first of all,
On the trail.
right, but here's the problem. We have a private road that the town is not responsible for, per se.
They're taking care of it.
But they are taking care of it, correct. We have a gentleman that excavated his property to create a turnaround that is on private property that we have no control over. So if that gentleman decided tomorrow that he was gonna regrade his property and no longer have that there, not to say that he would, but he has that option, then there's, again, if, by us granting this, we're assuming a certain amount of liability in terms from the town's point of view. And because there is, this road has appeared to have almost shifted a few times over the last, I think, since 1959, and with other people making improvements to make it easier for the neighborhood, in good faith, and a great gesture to himself, has no binding responsibility to continue to do that. So for you to be able to do that on your property, those things have to be sort of mitigated out of it and taken and put onto the side.
That's further down, that's where I guess I'm confused. They're not.
But I think what I'm trying to say is that your plan needs to stand on its own. That's really what it comes down to. So how you want to develop that lot, how you want to change that easement, needs to stand on its own. So all the stuff that we've heard here tonight, because it's, again, private road, private property, we kind of have to remove all those things from the equation.
Everything we're looking at is from 6 May Lane.
Right. All I'm asking for you is come in with a solid plan.
Down to take care of the neighbors, to
Mr. Chairman.
impose on the neighbors.
Everybody wants to talk.
Go right ahead, I'm sorry.
A suggestion, and I'm not trying to spend your money, believe me. But I think all of us would have a better idea of we know the desired outcome, but the best possibility and best use to get that desired outcome, I think with the help of an engineering plan.
Even just a surveyed design.
Yeah, showing the easement.
Yes, civil
That's all.
engineer of can take care of the possibilities. You can have one option being the turnaround as suggested. You can have another option, the easement that you so desire. But to have something concrete for both, whatever the situation, here it is, here's the desired outcome, here's the way it can be accomplished, and then we've got something to make a decision on. So that I think an engineering plan,
Just step up to the
whether
microphone
it's
again,
just,
please.
I think that would be the best solution here.
So an example being, if we were coming in to say, you know what, from the intersection of 6 and 10 May Lane, we're coming up 40 feet square, 40 feet, 40 feet, 40 feet, and that's the easement we're looking for? Would that satisfy what you're asking?
For one, do you have a plot plan of the lot?
They had it with the paperwork.
I think they're referring to this.
Oh, okay, you don't have a,
You know,
One
having
that's
an
where-
engineering diagram with a proposed dwelling, and it can be just a square, the easement, the turnaround, all these options, I think it's the best way to go. Because then we're gonna have something concrete to operate on. The town engineer will have something directly in front of him to say, this is the preferred method to accomplish what we want. And then you'll probably have to give it to the planning board too. That's just a speculation too.
that's only if it's, the road's upgraded, but I mean, an engineered easement would,
Right, that's
going
what-
on to that lot, I think
Engineered easement.
would be something that we can look at and
Okay.
see what.
Mr. Chairman, if I can suggest.
Yes, please.
If I could suggest, we're having I think, a very robust discussion. Just as a point of procedure, if we have an opportunity to have them, the applicants, share any final comments, any final questions from the abutters, and then perhaps close the public hearing, if you will.
Absolutely.
And then we could have an opportunity to discuss what our recommendations may or may not be. But I certainly, I'm not looking to cut the applicant's comments off, but it seems as though we're getting into kind of a point-counterpoint discussion at this time.
Agreed.
I would suggest that we just try to give them an opportunity to either add any additional comments, and then we could move on.
Agreed. So do we have any additional comments by the abutters or any other parties concerned? This will be our last opportunity, please.
I'd just like to say real quickly, you'd probably resolve the whole thing. I mean, I hate to get you all out in the cold, but if you went down there and literally walked May Lane, and unfortunately, my van fell down a couple of days ago, so you'd, don't bother looking at that, but I think if you walked the property, you'd get an idea, I think, of what she's trying to do, you know, and she's trying to respect my property, and which I appreciate, and that's about it, you know, basically.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so no further comments, I'd like to make a motion to close public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So do you have any further comments from the board?
I do. Shocker.
We haven't heard from you.
I would agree that I think it's hard for us to approve an easement that we actually physically can't see. Both because we have a responsibility to actually see what you're proposing, and because I know with this particular board, we always take really into account for abutters, and it seems like the neighbors that you have here are certainly all for it, but for them to also be able to see it on paper and be fully shaking their head of, yes, we're full steam ahead, I think that would help us. I'm not so convinced that I think you need to make improvements to the road.
But I do or don't.
I'm not convinced that you need to, and I won't comment any further than that. But that's my position now. I think you were told it was a buildable lot. For me, that's a consideration. If we don't have the records, or we don't have the this or that, it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's buildable.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, so just a few comments. I appreciate the work that the applicants have done in reaching to the neighbors, and I think they're trying to do the best they can in making it suitable for the neighbors, for the rebutters. I do take into account strongly the comments of Mr. Coyle regarding needing to see a plan, a proposed plan that's drawn out and shows exactly what they're proposing, not just, by layout, respectfully, a sketch drawing of so many feet, but an actual proposed plan. I also think that it's important for some guidance to be sought from the chief, the fire chief, just on their take on, once we have a proposed easement, if it's suitable. It seems to me, based on the layout, that it will be in combination with across the street, one of the final houses on that row. So I'd like to see the fire chief weigh in on emergency vehicle access. Given the increased traffic flow, I understand that they have an interested buyer right now, but for longevity, that could change, depending on who lives when and where, and the traffic flow could increase. So in order for me to vote on an easement, I'd need to see a plan. And I'd like to see the chief weigh in on that traffic flow and egress for emergency vehicles. So I would strongly be in favor of recommending a continuance until we have a plan in front of us to look at. I wouldn't be comfortable with making a vote.
Any further?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Any further comments?
I'd like to see a plan with the easement. Myself, that would be, I'd like to see the easement. That's what I'm interested in. Engineered.
So I think,
Lines.
if I may say that, I don't think, as if I can cautiously speak on behalf of the board, that anyone here is opposed to your plan. I think what they are looking for is adequate documentation, ensuring that the town engineer is satisfied with the necessary easements, or however the turnaround's gonna be, whatever that might be, and a review by the chief of the fire department to ensure that public safety vehicles have adequate means of entrance and egress. So with that being said, I think that a continuation, so you can get your plan drawn up, have those steps taken place, and then come before us again, I think you'd probably cautiously, I could say, at least from my own point of view, you would meet with a favorable outcome, but I will not speak on behalf of the other members of the board. So if you would be so kind as to request a continuation for me, formally, yes, please. Make a motion to open the public hearing, quickly.
Motion to open the public hearing?
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Just a formality? Okay, go ahead.
I would like to ask for a continuation.
Yes, okay.
For 1 month, is that?
I don't think we'll put a time frame on it. We'll give you an opportunity to say that it's continued until you are satisfied with your presentation that you want to come back in front of us again.
Okay.
Okay, so do I have a motion on the floor to accept the continuation request?
Motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know.
We banged through them, and, well, not too bad, 2 hours. Okay, so,
This is yours. Sorry, I probably just wrote all over that there. Question marks.
so I'd like to, do I have a motion on the floor for a 5-minute recess to allow the room to clear?
Motion for a 5-minute recess.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-minute recess. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so can I get a motion to come out of recess, please?
Motion to come out of recess?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we're back in business, we're out of recess. The room is cleared, so we have a few signatures to take care of. In regards to the Polar Corporation decision from last month. So if that goes around, if you could just sign that, please. Also on the agenda, let me find my agenda again here. I submitted a request to vote for the vice chair position this evening. As you know, that we've had some issues with the alternate positions in recent months, but I feel as though that now that is moving forward in the process of the town, that it's time to fill a vice chair position. So, do I have a motion to open nominations?
I'll make a motion to open nomination.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a nomination on the floor?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Michael Marin.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have any additional nominations? Hearing none, seeing none. Can I have a motion to close nominations?
Motion to close nomination.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So for the formality of it, do I have a vote in favor of Mr. Maron becoming the vice chair of the zoning board?
I will be voting in the affirmative.
Through roll call, Mr. Cussy?
Affirmative.
Ms. Roach? And myself, affirmative. Congratulations, Mr. Maron.
Thanks, I think.
So, the next on the agenda is, you can see that I wrote a draft letter that you also received in your packets, requesting from the town manager and the respective board members regarding a comprehensive review of the Auburn zoning bylaws. I think it's time. They've been occasionally reviewed in small increments over years, but fundamentally, they need, I think, an overall review. As you've seen, especially in the last few months, the overlay district that we discussed on Route 20 between South Street and Millbury Street, certain other areas, and again this evening, even with the gymnasium, there's no mention of the fact of the gymnasium in our bylaws whatsoever. So as we come up with these issues, we can take note of them and present. However, with that being said, this is the letter that I drafted. If you have any comments or concerns or edits, hearing any?
I've got a question. In order to accomplish this, I think it's a wonderful idea. In order to accomplish it, are we going to set up the committee that's going to do it, or is this going to be an appointed committee that will read, edit, and make suggestions?
So I think my research, what I've seen here is we technically could set up our own subcommittee and we could begin the draft of the bylaws. However, I think, and again, I'm looking at old language, which again I think should be revisited as a whole as well. So with that being said, I thought with the old language and the new ethics standards and the new ethics requirements that the Commonwealth and the town have, that it would be in our best interest to present to the appointing authority and the board, come to a consensus on how it should be done. And then, again, as you saw in my letter, I outlined, because of the way they've just recently done it with the town, they held public hearings, they held public discussion, they appointed members of this board, or it would be this board, to the board and to the subcommittee, and then seek out members of the community as well that might be able to help. So again, we can go both ways, but I thought because of the old language and then the new ethical requirements, I think it would be best presented to the board this way, to the
appointing
authority, correct.
I think I'd agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think this is extremely well-written.
Thank you.
I would have no comments or edits, and I like the idea of, I think that the way I would suggest starting this is that we lift interested members of this board into the committee, and then outreach from that committee to additional resources to join that committee. Run the participants by the appointing authority, and then set up schedules to meet the scope, and then present that scope and schedule back from the committee member, present it back to this board, and then the check-in for this board to review any output from the committee.
Okay.
But I think this proposal extremely well done.
So what I think then, am I hearing that, would like to submit this letter and then come up with a proposed guidelines to suggest?
My suggestion would be to propose just lift proposed members that would be on the committee from this board, and then that committee could discuss what other stakeholders they want to include in the committee, what outreach from the community.
Okay.
Started from there. So this board create, whoever's interested participating from this board, then fill other seats on the committee, and then present a schedule and timeline.
Sure. You know, it's funny you say that, because I actually sort of envisioned, it seems that each of us have an area that we've found interest in, whether it be real estate or signage or different things that we've all focused on with our decisions throughout the years. Thought that might be an interesting way to break down the requirements and then sort of
I think that's
carry
an
those
excellent-
forward.
I think that's an excellent suggestion.
Okay. So again, this is only the preliminary to show the appointing authority that we're interested, and then over the next maybe month or two, take a few minutes at the end of each meeting and discuss how we'd like to move forward with it.
I would agree. I would make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that notwithstanding any additional comments, that we submit, present this letter to the selectmen, the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Any
And
other
I would
comments?
second it.
Nope.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I would second that motion.
Okay.
I'll third.
So do I have a motion on the floor to present this letter to the appointing authority?
Sure.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So that was it for the agenda. We have our signatures. That can go with you, I believe.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion to close the hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.